Hello and welcome to the Business of Business podcast. I'm your co-host, JP Jabaj, for the two-man power trip. Of course, joining me is the doctor himself, Mr. Lavie Margolin. Lavie, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, John. Interesting topics for today. Starting out with some news that was potentially a bit surprising. I'm still a little bit skeptical, but we'll learn more. And then finishing sort of in a semi-related topic that's a little bit heavier than usual.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's start off with something very interesting here. Let's talk out with CMLL. What is going on with the great, legendary 92-year-old Mexican promotion?
Yeah, and it's interesting following Lucha Blog that they announced the next anniversary, the number of days out, based on their anniversary year. So they announced their anniversary show 92 days out. But for today, we're going to focus on their U.S. efforts, specifically America. So in my research for the end topic for today, I came across a really well-written piece by a outlet called Documented, which focuses on the immigrant experience. And they did a piece on MWC Worldwide, which ran a show at Club La Boom, a fairly frequently run venue by all sorts of promotions. It was like a favorite of WWN as they had Evolve and Shine and all that sort of stuff back in the day. Plenty of lucha shows there all the time. Where I work in Harlem, you'll always find posters not only for wrestling shows at La Boom, but concerts and all of that appeal to a Latino community. But all of that being said, why is this the top story? So I was kind of shocked in reading what they wrote in the article. The event, organized by MWC Worldwide, and part of the 92-year-old Mexican wrestling promotion, CMLL, was sold out that evening. So I was like, part of? So I asked them, I was like, does that mean that CMLL owns MWCC and MWC, excuse me, and Amir Kafagi, one of two co-authors of the piece, said that that's correct. So pretty surprising to me. I don't think we had any evidence of CML owning any promotions in the US before, or owning percentages. It always seemed like the idea was that either they were booking talent, maybe somebody had a connection in the office to bring them over, or talent were booking themselves or referring themselves to such a promotion. It sort of makes sense, if you run a show pretty regularly in New York, CMLL can benefit directly from that. Why it's not called that as a promotion here, is a little bit of a question mark. And then it begs the question, if they own one in New York, do they own one in Chicago, in LA, and all that sort of things, and kind of making me rethink, sort of what is CMLL doing in the U.S. market. But I'm still asking some people, exploring this a little bit, because I'm still a little bit skeptical, but some really good journalists, as I begun to learn about them, reported this, and I asked them to clarify it, and one of them did, and that's what the information is.
Very interesting. Now, something else that came across here as super interesting here. So, is GCW having another game involved with the Brooklyn Cyclones here? What is going on with GCW?
Yeah, so just to sort of reframe the whole experience here. So GCW is going to be in Maimonides Park in Brooklyn, of course, home of the Brooklyn Cyclones, in July. The day before, actually, the TNA Slammiversary. I was about to say infamous. The way we're dissecting the ticket sales, it is becoming infamous. But and talent will float between the two, like Masha Slamovich, Matt Cardona, that sort of thing. So that we'll talk about in a moment. But to me, as we've talked about on the show, I think the real success potentially of a show like this is how much visibility does it have at the ballpark in advance. So as we're recording this, if you're hearing it on the podcast, it might be about to happen or happening, or if you're watching on YouTube, it's happening soon. So there's actually a Game Changer Wrestling night. Thursday, June 26th, which is not a wrestling show, but sort of a themed night. WWE has done this with various MLB teams before, and I think sometimes minor league, and you'll see it like in minor league hockey and that sort of thing. So you'll have like a presence, but it's not necessarily a wrestling show. So GCW and the Cyclones retweeted it. We are proud to partner with the Cyclones to present Game Changer Wrestling Night on June 26th. Come meet your favorite GCW stars and see GCW take the field. So curious to see like what stunts may occur and so on. Get free autographs and pictures. First pitch thrown out by the bad boy, Joey Janela. Hopefully his baseball skills are a little bit better than, who was it, John, that was at the Mets game recently? One of the female,
Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany Stratton, yes.
She throws like I throw. Maybe my throw actually would have been a little bit shorter than hers, but in terms of accuracy, nothing wrong with that. And more fun. So that's the way they market it. And then, once I liked it on Facebook or whatever, then I started getting served all these different ads. So the Cyclones are marketing the events differently or concurrently the same night. So, okay, one thing to note actually about the GCW show is for the first 500 fans, the GCW fans, gcwbaseball@gmail.com. So that's one thing. But it's also the end of the school celebration, post-game fireworks, free tickets for all students 16 and under, and free Dippin' Dots for the first 750 kids. So interesting to see, all these free tickets going out there. How much are the Cyclones papering the stadium, right, John? Right. But it also shows that, obviously being in a baseball park, having been in a mall, that GCW has this flexibility, right? Like you could go and you could make money in Atlantic City and throw people through a pane of glass or whatever, and then you could be totally different and be there the same night as Dipping Dots night. So I think that's important for a wrestling promotion. And, in terms of sustainability, we've talked about this, fairly regularly in the summertime, that whether it's Northeast Wrestling or others, like working with minor league baseball stadiums to do what I assume are sold shows or co-promoted shows, that could be quite lucrative. So here they are potentially building up their portfolio. So in terms of the actual Bash at the Ballpark show, 10 or more tickets remaining in the fourth row ringside. So it's moving along. It's very hard to tell how a show like this will do. I wouldn't expect it's going to be the TNA record breaker, right? I think it was like once 4,500 people, sort of like peak TNA 2009, where they did really well. And then, those ROH Field of Honor shows did pretty well, and they kind of petered out at the end, accelerated a little bit by WWE starting to run NXT the same night. But I wouldn't necessarily expect that, but really curious to see what we can learn about that. But based on past history, it's actually unlikely to be the best-selling independent pro wrestling show at a New York City proper minor league baseball game. June 30th, Micro Wrestling returns to Staten Island. Last year, they did 2,000 people. So I haven't seen any additional advance press for that show, but it kind of exists in its own world for obvious reasons. It's a little bit exploitative and embarrassing sometimes to talk about. I know that obviously for the performers and the promoters, they think about it as empowering and so on. So everyone makes their own decisions with that, but just curious to see that sort of like as a comparable data point, as they say. So just running through some more GCW, and we will address a bit the elephant in the room and why we're addressing it in the way that we are before we move on. But cool little tweet that Brett had where he took his son to an independent, I think he called it Monster Truck Show, but it looked like it was more race cars or whatever, but that's neither here or there. But like, it looked like my suggestion was like, wouldn't it be cool for GCW to have a ring like in the center of the field and like, you know, have it surrounded by these bleachers? And he's like, of course, you know, that was my first thought as well. So maybe we should be on the lookout for that, or maybe it was a fleeting thought. We'll see. June. So running through the shows, June 20th in Little Rock. Pretty slow. Actually, it's today as we record this. I took a screenshot a couple days ago, but probably the second row is sold out by this point. Third row potentially as well, so maybe picking up a little bit, but there was a little bit of tickets left. In Kansas City, though, even slower. 10 or more tickets remaining in the second row. The third row was actually moving along a little bit better. There was just 5 tickets remaining. In Hartford, I think the reserve tickets were gone. Just GA available. In Dallas, the AEW weekend, July 11th, that picked up a lot. The 5 reserved rows ringside are sold out with just GA remaining. Talking about the Rutherford, New Jersey shows, I think there's just a modest amount of reserve tickets that are available. So in the GCW proper show, Hit 'em Up just has GA available. JCW, the Juggalo show, has 3 tickets in the stage, third row available. So then GA. Bloodsport has just GA available. And the Emo show just has GA available as well. So we'll have to look out for those tickets. August 15th and 16th, we're waiting for the new ticket sales information for the GCW, JCW 2-Day War show. Obviously, we talked about that a lot here. Return to Atlantic City. I think it's just one night, which is interesting. August 24th, because usually that's a double shot. Detroit on September 12th. Indianapolis on the 13th. Phoenix on the 19th. LA on the 20th of September. And then in terms of GCW proper, all the way in Anchorage on October 4th. And of course, to be filled in. So to address a little bit of the elephant in the room, Brandon Thurston did it again. He found a lawsuit that was filed in November that none of us had heard about. Kevin Guild v. GCW or thereabouts. I hope I'm saying that correctly. So it's public information. People can go on there and read that. I'm not going to speculate on the moment because it's just things certainly we will address it directly once the case has played out a little bit more. And candidly, they're both guests and friends of the show. We hate when people fight, but not necessarily fighting, but in a lawsuit, in a court of law, sometimes that's the way to resolve things. But that's the situation. But in terms of the business side of things, there was some interesting information. I mean, a lot of interesting information, but in terms of financially that we can look at in terms of lawsuit. I never thought that GCW's Patreon was potentially so lucrative. I thought it was sort of like a little thing along the way. But, early on at one point, it seems to have been making $5,000 or $6,000 a month, and then even peaked at potentially $10,000 to $15,000 a month. But, in terms of one of these trackers that actually came from Brandon, it looks like it peaked at around 500 members during the World on GCW show at the Hammerstein. So it was like sort of almost an up trajectory from there, and then a little bit bumpy ride down up to this point where it seems to have stabilized, where there's about 200 Patreon members right now. So for a smaller promotion, it's really interesting, to look at. And finally, and this is, if for some reason Cage Match had this listed as a GCW show, it's not. Maybe they're working under their license or something like that. But this is really a fundraiser, of course, for Jeff Cannonball Fest. Joey Janela, September 14th. Reports it'll be the biggest indie show in New Jersey independent wrestling history, and it's for Jeff Cannonball. And this will be in New Providence, New Jersey. How far is that from you, John?
About 45 minutes. So it's kind of right on like the territory of it. It's a little far, but not too far. It's not bad. 45 minutes.
Yeah, it seems like it'll be quite the special show. Actually, I'm going back to see where GCW is on the 13th. They're in Indianapolis, so certainly, some of the talent that will be involved will have a chance to fly back. Many are based in the Northeast. Is that something you're thinking about going to?
I was thinking about it. I was actually literally looking at it before because I saw Joey Janela had posted. I was like, oh, interesting. Maybe.
Yeah, so of course, in a show like that, we'll want to get the attendance because it'll be fun to look at. But the key thing is how much money can be raised for Jeff Cannonball. I'm assuming besides ticket sales, other ancillary things that will go on, or maybe even like a donation box would be my speculation. And I give him as much cash as possible to help in his fight against ALS.
100%. Now, what is going on in the world of TNA wrestling? It seems like some interesting TV news, possibly some TKO news.
Yeah, so John, do you follow Axe? It uses the picture from that HBO show, which I recently binge watched with my wife. So it's a mysterious person from the world of media, but he's very legitimate to me. Just reading his articles, you can tell he knows what he's talking about. But he's also affiliated with MMA Draw, which is connected to Fight Opinion and some really knowledgeable people that were associated with Bloody Elbow.
I'm not familiar.
Oh, okay.
Look him up.
Yeah. So, some of the biggest scoops have been coming from him. Somebody just DM'd me that he was somehow suspended on X. Maybe he's sharing too much information. I don't know, but I'll have to look into that later. So, this is through his Substack. So I had to grab some screenshots, so it might be a little bit bumpy, but try and read it as smoothly as possible. Behind the rebrand, the crossover buzz, and the WWE main roster cameos, there is another layer to the partnership between TNA Wrestling and WWE. According to sources close to both parties, Anthem Sports and Entertainment, led by Len Asper, has been quietly positioning TNA Wrestling for a potential joint venture acquisition by WWE. The working relationship is real, the ambition is bigger, and the leverage, at least for now, is entirely one-sided. The WWE clause nobody talks about, buried within the WWE TNA agreement, is a 60-day termination clause. On the surface, it looks like standard legal language, but for WWE, it's a sword at their hip. If the deal loses value or TNA becomes a burden, WWE can walk away without consequence. No buyout, no penalty, just a quiet exit. This clause is not a trigger for the acquisition. It's a reminder of the imbalance. WWE holds the power. Anthem holds the hope. And in the current state of play, hope does not pay the bills. The void of leadership at Anthem. The original management team that rebuilt TNA from its Impact days has exited. What remains is Carlos Silva, a recently installed executive with limited to no experience in pro wrestling. According to sources, Silva has shown little interest in protecting the TNA brand or its long-term identity. Who's the guy that pinned Trick Williams on NXT last week? They were tweeting about it, and he didn't seem to be somebody that was like top of the card. Do you know offhand, John?
I don't remember. No, for some reason. I will try to find out.
Yeah, it was like sort of like he was pinned. I think may have been a tag match, and then Carlos Silva had like those like big eye emojis, and so I like followed the link. I was like, this guy doesn't seem like he's like one of their top stars. This might be Taz defending the ECW belt on SmackDown all over again. His approach is transactional. His strategy, if any, is to pay the WWE tax and bend the knee. Additionally, sources confirm Silva's main directive is to keep the runway alive long enough for Len Asper and WWE to finalize a deeper integration. Every recent decision, from personnel shifts to budget priorities, has reflected this path. The focus is not on building TNA Wrestling into a long-term standalone property. It is on preparing it for consolidation. Follow the money, then follow the exit. Multiple sources tell the MMA Draw that Anthem recently secured stopgap financing to keep TNA Wrestling operational. This was not capital intended for expansion or growth. It was structured more as a short-term runway extension, limited in scope, high in urgency, and primarily designed to preserve existing operations rather than build new ones. Behind the scenes, sources suggest this funding was positioned to prepare TNA for deeper integration with WWE. That process could mirror WWE's recent acquisition of AAA, where AAA talent, creative, and production were gradually woven into WWE's programming through events like Worlds Collide. Okay, 1 second. Anthem and WWE, with support from TKO, are reportedly laying the groundwork now, aligning personnel, reallocating creative control, and integrating resources in anticipation of full creative absorption. So let me look at that again. Aligning personnel. So I haven't seen any of these things, on the outside, right? Reallocating creative control and integrating resources in anticipation of full creative absorption. Without the same level of infrastructure or cultural foundation that AAA had, TNA Wrestling may face a more abrupt and irreversible shift. What's next for TNA? The TNA brand returned in name, but whether it will survive in spirit is a different question. WWE is not here to co-promote forever. The value for WWE lies in operational control, developmental pipeline access, and brand monopoly. If TNA cannot sustain itself or generate value beyond nostalgia and cameo appearances, there will be no incentive to keep it alive. That is the real tension. Anthem and Asper want TNA to be saved by the same machine that could absorb and erase it. The partnership may have sparked headlines, but in the boardroom, the maneuvering is more cutthroat. WWE can walk away. TNA Wrestling cannot afford to be left standing alone. It's very dramatic, right? But a lot of huge business impact.
The guy who pinned Trick Williams, by the way, Pro Wrestling Noah wrestler Yoshiki Inamura pinned Trick Williams on NXT. So interesting, not even a big guy, a guy from Pro Wrestling Noah is kind of on an excursion, which is another interesting thing that WWE is partnering up a little bit with Pro Wrestling Noah as well.
Oh, wow. I wasn't aware that there were active talents there. So kind of sort of there, but not a major part of what's going on in NXT, I assume.
Not at all. No, he's there. He's kind of over, in a certain way, but they haven't really used him as much. He's been on PLEs and stuff. He's been on TV, but I mean, it's not like he's getting a huge push or anything even close to that.
Yeah. So, Axe, if you want to come on our show, I know Cruel was just on John's show and didn't wear the mask. So maybe you want to wear the Cruel mask and we can have one of those voice masking things where it's gives you a really deep voice and we'll respect your anonymity, hard word to say. But we'd love to learn more on that. But on to more TNA news. This was an interesting one because I kind of thought they had it already, but TNA Plus launches free. Okay, actually, that's one element, but a second. TNA Plus launches free tier with exclusive live stream of Impact. TNA Wrestling announced today it is launching a new free tier of its TNA streaming service, expanding access for fans. To mark the occasion, TNA will live stream an episode of Impact for free on June 20th. In addition, okay. This is a huge moment for TNA. The response to our growing momentum has been incredible. Let me see, actually. Do I have the notes of what I was actually referring to? Okay. So that's fine, right? A little bit of get people registered with TNA Plus, get used to the service, and then it's a smooth transition to purchase for some. So that's good. But the interesting thing to me was TNA will soon launch a 24/7 linear streaming channel, TNA 24/7, delivering around-the-clock wrestling content. So linear streaming channel. So don't they have that already on a number of services? That's one of the things that they're really good at. There must be something different about it, or maybe more services, or maybe some services will have 2 TNA channels. Something to see. Their social media and brand presence continues to grow. They just passed 1 million followers on Instagram. These things don't tend to go down unless a lot of them are bots and so on, and you really lose momentum. They're on the lookout for street team member volunteers in both New York City and Providence, Rhode Island. So let's talk about ticket sales. So for the show coming up today, although we don't have a pre-count yet via WrestleTix for the day, 1,572 tickets distributed of a $24.96 setup with 3,810 tickets on the map. An interesting note from WrestleTix, this pattern looks similar to when seats dropped off for the Tempe taping last week. For that set of tapings, they allocated 500 tickets to VetTix, 370 for Reclaimed. It wouldn't surprise me if a similar number was allocated for this set of tapings. And this was a 577 ticket increase. So whether they are being comped or it's excitement leading up to the show, tickets have been moving very quickly now. Similarly, on the second day, 1652, 559 increase from the day before. Now, we're a little bit mistimed again in terms of Slammiversary, but we do have a number from last week in terms of ticket sales. And again, John, another shocking number. Down 175 from the 8 days before. So just over 2,500 tickets. So it looked like a sure thing, like, okay, it was going to be over 3. 4 was within reach, and it just keeps going down. And unless I missed it, there's no main event announced yet, right?
Nothing. Nope.
So
they got to work on
it. I don't think anyone's holding hope for John Cena anymore or anything like that. So maybe a Trick Williams return, I guess, defend against who he defeated and so on. So, but that's what it is. So there's going to need to be a lot of street team members in New York City. Just a joke, everyone. Kingstown, Rhode Island, July 24th and 25th. Tickets are now fully on sale. Of course, just a partial setup for a venue that's about 7,500 tickets wide.
What is going on in MLW? They've had some cuts recently. Who's been cut? Who's going to be gone from the company?
Yeah, kind of like the same pattern that we've seen play out for a while. And again, like not surprising necessarily because you wouldn't imagine seeing so many talent under contracts because they really only run at most once a month. It seems like in the summers, we'll talk about their schedule. They're going to take a little break at certain points as well. So maybe they only run 10 or 11 times a year max. So a really standout talent to me, especially since I saw him go against Speedball at Bloodsport, which was a unique, 2-minute match. I'm not sure. I might be misremembering it, but Akira, and I have seen him like Callous Wrestling. At first, I was sort of not knowing much about him. I was kind of writing him off like deathmatch wrestler, whatever. But he's really talented. He can work a number of styles. Really a standout. Somebody that again has worked GCW. So that would be obviously somewhere where they'd want to book him. I could definitely see him in AEW. Introducing him against Speedball would seem to be a smart move. And Delmi Exo has been cut as well, who was really a standout talent too. According to Mike Johnson, all expected departures and releases are now complete. The company's plan to bring in bigger names in the future result in the current roster being shifted. Selena De La Renta, she seems to be in good favor with Court Bauer and the MLW executive team. She's now has the title Vice President of Wrestler Relations. It's kind of hard to tell with MLW, like, is this on-screen thing? Is this a behind-the-scenes thing? Like this is like the first female producer of a wrestling show or something like that a couple of years ago. Thankfully, they dropped like the awkward thing of like who's the father of the baby. I don't think they were like they resolved that in terms of storyline. Could sort of be awkward in real life when you do something like that. I don't think that was resolved. I asked Grok about that, but we'll see what her influence is. Summer of the Beast in Queens is basically sold out. Standing room only, no surprise there. So that's this month. Then, as far as I know, they could announce some things, but it'd be a little bit late to do so. They go all the way to September 13th in Dallas. So let's look at the schedule again. So New York, June 26th, North Richland Hills, Texas, where they did really well the first time, September 13th. Back to Long Beach, California on October 4th, and then in Cicero Stadium on November 15th. So they have their rhythm down, in terms of running the same venues and same sort of cycle over and over.
Now, as far as the NWA is concerned, what is going on? What is the latest from Billy Corgan's NWA?
As tends to happen with fast channels, like there was no date of like when Wrestling Central will start, and it's here. So NWA announced it, but I don't know if there's new programming yet on the channel. Right? They promised that 1 hour show, and it's still running on Power, still running on X. So that has to be sorted out, or at least communicated better to those that are looking. Grok was wrong on where NWA 77 will be. It will be in Huntington, New York, Friday, August 16th at the Paramount. Okay. This venue can accommodate up to 1,573 guests. Thankfully, it's on Ticketmaster, and WrestleTix has us covered. It's a setup of 745, but there's an area called the Sky Bar, so it's unclear how many people can be accommodated there. I don't imagine it's double, so there's some using the ring and setup and so on. I don't think there's going to be a 1573 potential. But of the 745 setup, 180 tickets distributed already. So I think that's a pretty good start for them. And just a reminder that there's a July 1st taping in Tampa, sort of the place that they announced, sort of like as their home place to tape, WEDU PBS in Tampa, Florida.
With everything going on in the world of the NWA, there's also a lot of independent wrestling going on, and possibly some big venues. What's the latest on some big venues and some indies?
Yeah, so just wanted to spotlight a few, and if people are aware of others, let us know. So this is sort of looking at like arenas, so not larger high school bleachers, or we talked a little bit about outdoor baseball stadiums. So like people running actual arenas, even if they're small to mid-sized venues. So of course, on July 5th, Maple Leaf Pro Resurrection in the Coliseum de Laval. Then there's, which is 3,500 seat general capacity. Prestige Wrestling Combat Clash, which in the Pacific Northwest, which has a general setup of 3,094 seats for things like basketball and volleyball. It could be up to 3,400 for concerts and other events. And our friends at Limitless Wrestling are back at the Vacation Land Cup at the Coliseum in Lewistown, Maine on August 9th. And finally, VIPW, Vancouver Island WrestleFest, the largest independent professional wrestling show in Western Canada, returns on June 27th. Last year, we packed in over 2,000 rabid fans into the Frank Crane Arena in Nanaimo. The first 3 rows sold out in under 48 hours. And the venue can seat up to 2,400. So 400 other people that have rabies are... Sorry, that's a bad joke.
So now we got to go somewhere serious, though. After that bad joke, we got to get serious here. The government policy.
I know I messed myself up now.
Yeah. So government policy and impact on Lucha. So what is going on? This is some pretty serious stuff here, Lavie.
Yes. So I'm not making a social or political statement here. I'm just reporting on the news as is. Yes. And of course, everyone put it through your own filters and things like that. So, but we do have to look at, with ICE's directive has been reported of detaining 3,000 persons without status in the U.S. per day, gatherings of Lucha fans, promoters are getting nervous, and might be keeping fans away. So let's see what we know at the moment. Mucha Lucha Atlanta. And thanks to one of our loyal listeners who doesn't miss an episode for sharing this with us. In the Atlanta area. To our loyal fans, sponsors, and media, we regret to inform you that Lucha Libre events scheduled for July 13th will be postponed until further notice. The difficult decision is due to the complex situation our community is currently experiencing, marked by massive deportation raids and immigration enforcement operation by ICE. Many of our fans and their families are facing these times with uncertainty, fear, and concern, which we deeply understand. As a serious and committed company, our main objective is to offer a first-class show, both in production and performance. Today, more than ever, we believe it's time to unite as a community. So this is by Ricardo Ordaz Jr., the CEO of MLA, a promotion that we talked about a few times on the show due to their consistent and outstanding attendance of over, I think it was like 1,200 fans I'm not sure if it's a nightclub or a venue of that sort regularly, and sort of knowing their market. TEA KAGEE on X had tweeted out, Minnesota Lucha Fed canceling show because of current concerns of protecting patrons from ICE abductions. Rudos Promoción La Lucha Libre postponed an event on June 22nd. The announcement is in Spanish, of course, so I'm not going to attempt that. Another promoter that shall remain anonymous reported to me canceling a show because ICE has been very active in that southeastern U.S. area. What else on the periphery related to Lucha Libre is going on? L.A. Public Press article by Michael Lozano. Federal immigration agents raided the Santa Fe Spring swap meet, detaining at least 2 people and possibly dozens more amid ongoing No Kings protests across the region. Footage shared at least 2 people being detained. The raid has sparked fear across the swap meet, which has long been a go-to hub for Latino and Chicano culture. There, attendees can shop for sarapes and other cultural wear, enjoy micaletas with a stage that has hosted Lucha Libre. So that's the connection there. And then via the Gazette, Kayleen McCain, organizers say they won't hold Washington's Latino Festival this summer, canceling plans for a popular day-long annual tradition in the city's Central Park, marked by an abundance of authentic food, flashy Lucha Libre, and so on. So is it all bleak? Well, we're circling back to the article referenced at the beginning by Amir Kafagi and Romel Ojeda. Via documented, a total knockout. Lucha Libre is a celebration of culture, resilience, and fun. While the fear of deportations brought on by the Trump administration has gripped immigrant communities across New York City, at Lucha Libre in Queens, excitement, not fears, fill the air. So I'm going to read a portion of the article. In Trump's hometown of Queens, New York, around 250 New Yorkers wore elaborate, colorful masks to celebrate an integral part of Mexico's heritage, Lucha Libre. At Woodside's La Boom, a nightclub in Queens, masked luchadors and luchadoras flung each other across the wrestling ring in an acrobatic spectacle that delighted devoted fans who roared when their hero pinned the villain on the mat. Meanwhile, outside the ring, the fear of deportation brought on by the Trump administration has gripped immigrant communities across the city, causing many businesses and institutions to see a sharp decline in patronage. The evening at La Boom was quite the opposite. In the wrestling arena full of spandex and colorful masks, not a seat sat empty. Just looking at venue capacity, that might have been the number of chairs, but I think there is more room. Excitement, not fear, filled the air. The event was sold out that evening. The fans in attendance came to see iconic Mexican legends such as Blue Panther, Mascara Dorado, and Templaro. Parents who grew up watching Lucha Libre brought their children, introducing a new generation for the time-honored tradition. Sergio Villalba, a promoter of the MWC Worldwide, emphasized that Saturday's crowd was a testament to the importance of organizing Lucha Libre shows for the community. A lot of the time, people are being criminalized, even though they are not criminals themselves, and being placed under a blanket statement. There are less people out in the street going to events, but we have a lot of people showing up here tonight. Alberto Flores, 47, explained he has always been a fan of wrestling shows like WWE, particularly of Lucha Brothers Tag Team, which, who we know. Seeing a Lucha Libre match in person was a lifelong dream. It's the first time we have come to an event like this one, but we are planning for a while. He migrated from Puebla 27 years ago. It's really nice for the family to come and enjoy the fights. To enjoy it with the family is the most important thing. Okay, so I think we got that context. So, generally, there's a headline from CNN. Some U.S. cities are canceling culture events over fears of ICE raids and deportation. In LA news, sort of bigger, okay, what's going on in sports. The Mexican national soccer team returned to LA, but in difficult and uncertain times for its supporters. Mexico kicks off the CONCACAF Gold Cup against the Dominican Republic on Saturday night. The defending tournament champions are returning to a place that has been kind to them in the past, but many fans might stay away because of the continuous immigration raids in LA. We know of the ongoing rioting. Homeland Security did say that they would have boots on the ground, and then I think deleted it or something like that. So they felt it was making people nervous. But as far as I can tell, and I know that ICE was apparently, or as has been reported, ICE was apparently using the Dodgers for some activities, and Dodgers management was like, you can't be here. But there has been no sports specific or gathering raids of that nature. As far as I can tell, the only ones I noticed were at a festival. But obviously, if you're in that situation and you're concerned, and are afraid, why take that risk? So you could see why it's having an impact overall.
All right, Lavie, good stuff there. And interesting to note, you are blocked by Sami Zayn. So that's just also interesting to note as well as we wrap it up and head towards the plugs. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. How about you, Lavie?
Yeah, follow me on X. I know Sami Zayn is not, unless secretly, at Lavie Marg, LAVIE MARG. Check out my long form articles on LionCubJobSearch.com. Join our group on LinkedIn, The Business of the Business. We are the official business podcast of PW Ponderings, and we are distributed by the Creative Control Network.
All right. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. We'll see you right back here next week for a little business of the business. See you next week.